cat, but while they don't have the strength of a lion, what they do have is speed. As cheetahs are the fastest land mammal that is around today. Because cheetahs are when I say they're the fastest animals on land, I mean, one way they are the fastest is, as you can see, they have a small head and small ears, which reduce drag to make them more aerodynamic. They also have loose shoulder and hip joints and a flexible spine that bends and curves almost like a bow. Cheetahs have been clocked going from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 3 seconds, so they can outpace a sports car or a Porsche. And their maximum speed can be 70 to 71 miles per hour, which is absolutely phenomenal. Of course, cheetah mainly hunt small antelope like gazelle, but also impala. And how they do it is because cheetahs also have probably the most advanced vision of any cat, and they can actually spot a moving gazelle from over a mile away thanks to a layer of cells at the back of their eyes that enhance their vision. And they have to get to within no more than 30 or 20 metres of their prey before they charge. And once they chase after their prey, they have to whack at its legs to knock their prey off balance, and then they will go for the throat and suffocate it. In fact, about 50% of cheetah hunts, or 1 in 4 hunts, end in success, so they are some of the most successful hunters of all the big cats. But there is a problem. Cheetahs can only maintain their maximum speed for only a short period of time before their body overheats, and then they could probably spend as much as half an hour burning off that excess body heat. And cheetahs, like many members of the cat family, are solitary, with the exceptions of mothers and their cubs. But male cheetahs will usually form a group, like a small group of about 2 or 3, and that's usually brothers banding together. And when male cheetahs work together, they can bring down prey larger and heavier than themselves, like wildebeest, zebra, and even ostriches. And of course, the largest recorded cheetah group was about 5 males in Kenya, in East Africa. Of course, cheetahs that have cubs, they can have about 3 to 5 cubs, and of course it's the mother's job to provide them with food as well as protect them, because cheetah cubs are very vulnerable, especially to predators like lions, spotted hyenas, wild dogs and baboons. Only about 60 to 75% of cheetah cubs don't make it to their first year. Of course, being fast means that the cheetah is also a lightweight, so it can't defend itself against tougher animals like lions or even hyenas. So when food is scarce, the cheetah will often lose out. Its specialty of running fast can sometimes be its biggest weakness. The sad reality is that the populations of cheetahs are minuscule in comparison to the past. And like their habitat is shrinking to be replaced by farmland, and also they're overhunted for their fur because it's so beautiful, but also for their cubs to be sold through the illegal wildlife trade as exotic pets to disreputable zoos, or even to a rich man's collection, or for tourists to have their photos taken with. When the savannas cheetahs live on is turned into farmland, quite often that means that the cheetahs are seen as a threat to livestock and shot by farmers. And if this carries on, then in the next 50 years, the cheetah could become extinct in the wild. But there is people trying to do something about this, like with breeding populations in captivity, and also working with people to try and preserve the habitat they live in. So there is hope for the fastest land animal. Of course, this is much of their range. Now, the next African animal I'm going to show you is probably Africa's least known predator, but it is probably its most successful. It is the African hunting dog. African hunting dogs are probably Africa's least known predator, but they are the continent's most relentless and successful predators. And they can live in packs of about 30 or 40 animals, and when I say that they're probably the most successful predator on the planet, I mean, their success rate is about in 85% of their hunts, they end in success. So it makes them more successful than lions or any of the big cats, really. I mean, their secret is teamwork. And they have to hunt as a coordinated pack because they face a major problem catching fast and super smart prey like impala. Impala are their favourite prey. They're a kind of antelope, but they're also intelligent and hyper alert. The way the dogs catch them is by working together in a big team. And as they get closer, their fur, as you can see from the patterning, keeps them disguised. Because impala only see in black and white, so they can't see the dogs, but they do have a very good sense of hearing and smell. So the dogs have to be stealthy until they get close to their prey. And unlike the cats that are hoping to pounce on their victim, the dogs aren't the one that don't do that. In fact, they're happy for their prey to run. And once they're close enough, the lead dog begins the chase, and once that begins, some dogs will run to the side of the herd while others start the chase from behind. The dogs on the side are known as flankers. Their job is to cut off any escape routes. Of course, the impala herd's first line of defence is to stick closely together. Of course, the dogs also have the tactic of teamwork, and if they separate an impala from the herd, the lead dog and 2 or 3 flankers will zero in on that impala. While the impala have speed, the dogs also have another killer adaptation, and that's stamina. Because unlike human beings, hunting dogs have very big hearts and lungs, so they can run for longer periods of time. In fact, they can run for hours and miles. And as soon as their prey gets tired, they take it down. A pack like this kills usually once a day, and everything is shared and everything is eaten. In fact, like all members of the dog family, they also have a strong bite that can make short work of flesh, hide, sinew, gristle, and even bone. Of course, while African hunting dogs are the most successful predators in Africa and possibly the whole world, they are also some of the most threatened animals in Africa, and one of the main reasons for that is hunting for their fur, but also habitat loss, where a lot of their habitat is being destroyed by man, and that's taken over by farms or plantations or towns, and that leads to quite often wild dogs taking livestock and being shot in retaliation. But it's also bringing them into conflict with predators like lions and hyenas. But also, like all members of the dog family, hunting dogs are also at risk of rabies, which is a virus that affects all members of the canine family and is fatal. And they can easily catch rabies when they come into contact with pet or stray dogs. But there is hope. I mean, with scientists monitoring the wild dog populations in the wild, as well as breeding populations in captivity, and giving vaccinations to the local dogs to prevent the spread of rabies to the wild dogs, and gradually efforts are being made to preserve the habitats they live in, including their stronghold, which is the Okavango Delta. I'll get to that bit now. Here is the range of the African wild dogs, in fact, because the historic range is shown here in puce or bright pink or whatever colour that is. That was their historic range, but their present range is mostly around here, but their strongholds are here, here, and of course here. But their stronghold and study area is right here in the Okavango Delta in Botswana in southern Africa. Now I'm going to show you all an animal that is the largest of the primates, as well as one of our closest relatives and the true King Kong. It is the mountain gorilla. Mountain gorillas are found in the cloud forests of Rwanda, Uganda and the Congo. They live in family groups of about 30 to 40 animals. And of course, mountain gorillas were first discovered about just over 100 years ago, when the first outsiders came to these forests and they saw mountain gorillas for the first time. And they brought back stories of these terrifying beasts that were incredibly strong and could rip a man apart with their bare hands. That's actually what inspired the stories of Tarzan and most famously King Kong. But we have learned a lot more about mountain gorillas since then. We know they're actually herbivores, which are animals that feed on plants, and they're generally peaceful animals, and they're only aggressive when they're defending themselves, or more importantly, their family. A size comparison between a human being and a gorilla, right here. See, a mighty silverback gorilla, well, he'd probably be no taller than I am. He'd be at least 2 times my body weight and a lot more muscular. And in fact, people that work with gorillas have actually reckoned they're probably 10 times stronger than people. They've seen them bend iron bars. Of course, they're stacked with enormous muscles and have huge teeth. But they serve no purpose at all for feeding. I mean, they're purely for fighting and for defence. Of course, whenever a mountain gorilla group is threatened, quite often the dominant male, the silverback, will quite often give a very low growl, like a sort of, basically as a way to tell whatever it is to back off. But if that's ignored, they fly into a rage with begin a fight, and that can involve beating of the chest to hefty punches, and even bites being taken out of their opponents. In fact, gorillas are fiercely loyal, and they will fight to the death to defend their families, and that can be against big predators like leopards, crocodiles, chimpanzees, as well as other massive mountain gorillas. But unfortunately, nowadays, the mighty silverbacks are not just putting their lives on the line to fight off leopards, crocodiles, chimps, and rival males. These days, they are facing human foes, and the strength of the silverback is unable to fight off the poacher's bullets. Of course, gorillas, the hunting of gorillas is illegal throughout their range, but poaching of gorillas is a massive problem. In fact, adult gorillas are hunted for sport, but also for the bushmeat trade, and for their body parts to be sold as ornaments or trinkets. But quite occasionally, young gorillas, when their mothers are killed,